When Dr. Priya Shah looked at the lab report, she stopped breathing for half a second. Not long enough for most people to notice, but I noticed. Because by then, I had spent years studying the faces of people who knew something and refused to say it. She looked at the little amber bottle I had brought from home. Then she looked at me. "Lena," she said carefully, "who packed these capsules for you?" "My husband," I said. "He owns a pharmacy." The room went so quiet I could hear the clock above the sink. Dr. Shah pushed the bottle away from me like it was something dangerous. "Do not take another one," she said. "Not tonight, not ever." I tried to laugh because the alternative was screaming. "They're just fertility vitamins." "No," she said, "they are not." That was the first crack. But it was not what destroyed me. What destroyed me came 3 days later when my best friend found a Facebook photo of my husband standing beside his pregnant girlfriend and 2 little boys wearing tiny shirts with my family's pharmacy name on them. And on that woman's wrist was my dead grandmother's bracelet, the one my husband told me I had misplaced. My name is Lena Brooks Caldwell. At least it was then. I was 37 years old, an elementary school art teacher in Westerville, Ohio, and for almost 6 years, I believed I was the problem in my marriage. I believed I was anxious. I believed I was dramatic. I believed my memory was unreliable. My body was weak, and my pain was something I had somehow invited into my own life. Because every time I said, "Ethan, something is wrong with me," my husband would touch my forehead, smile like I was a child afraid of thunder, and say, "Baby, you just need to calm down." Ethan Caldwell was not a doctor, but in our town, people trusted him almost the same way. He owned Caldwell Family Pharmacy, the small brick pharmacy on Maple Street with the green awning, the old soda cooler in the back, and the toy train he put in the front window every Christmas. His father had started the business in 1984. After his father died, Ethan took over. Everyone loved him. He remembered customers' names. He carried prescriptions out to elderly people's cars. He donated first aid kits to Little League. He sponsored the high school marching band. He gave flu shot coupons to teachers and free glucose monitors to church members who couldn't afford them. People would stop me in the grocery store and say, "You're so lucky, Lena. Ethan is one of the good ones." And I would smile, because that was what good wives did. They smiled while the whole town praised the man who made them feel crazy behind closed doors. I met Ethan when I was 31 during one of the loneliest seasons of my life. My grandmother, Ruth Brooks, had just died. She was the woman who raised me after my mother disappeared into a mess of boyfriends, unpaid bills, and promises she never kept. Grandma Ruth was not rich. She cleaned offices at night for almost 20 years and baked pies for church fundraisers on weekends. But she had this way of making a small life feel full. She left me her little blue Cape Cod house on Sycamore Lane, white shutters, a sagging porch, a kitchen floor that dipped near the refrigerator, a backyard full of purple hydrangeas. It was not fancy, but it was mine. The first thing in my life nobody could threaten to take away. Or so I thought. Ethan came to the house one rainy Saturday to pick up a box of old medical books my grandmother had promised his father years before. He stood in my kitchen with rain in his hair and told me my grandmother once bought cough syrup on credit because she had spent her last $20 feeding neighborhood kids. She was a good woman, he said. I cried beside the sink. He handed me a paper towel because that was all I had, and somehow that made me laugh through the tears. 3 months later, we were dating. A year after that, we got married under a white tent in Grandma Ruth's backyard. My best friend Marcy Rivera cried through the whole ceremony. Ethan's mother, Carol Caldwell, cried too, but hers looked different. She dabbed each eye carefully like she was afraid real tears might ruin her makeup. I should have paid attention to that. Carol never liked me. She never said it directly. Women like Carol rarely do. She said things like, "Lena is sweet, but she's not what Ethan pictured for himself." Or teaching art must be such a precious little job. All those crayons. All that free time in the summer. Or your grandmother's house has character. Of course it will need a man's hands if it's ever going to be worth anything. At family dinners, she asked when I was going to give Ethan children. When I said we were trying, she smiled with her lips only. "Well," she said once while passing the mashed potatoes, "some women are made for family. Some women are made for hobbies." Ethan squeezed my knee under the table, not to comfort me, to warn me not to react. For the first 2 years of our marriage, I tried to get pregnant. I tracked dates on an app. I bought ovulation strips. I took prenatal vitamins. I stopped drinking wine, stopped eating deli meat, stopped using scented candles because one blog said some fragrances could affect hormones. Every month I waited. Every month nothing happened. And every month Ethan became a little colder. Not cruel in a way I could easily explain. That would have been easier. He became controlled. He began packing my vitamins himself. You always forget, he said, lining little paper packets along the kitchen counter every Sunday night. I'll make it simple for you. Each packet had my name written in his careful block handwriting. Morning, lunch, bedtime. He said they were supplements for fertility, inflammation, sleep, and stress. Natural support, pharmacy-grade quality, things regular stores didn't carry. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He ran a pharmacy. People trusted him with their baby's antibiotics and their father's heart medicine. I trusted him with my vitamins. Then my body started changing. At first it was small, headaches behind my eyes, cramps that came at strange times, nausea in the morning even though every pregnancy test was negative. Then came the exhaustion. Not teacher tired, not end of the week tired. This was different. This was the kind of tired that felt like someone had filled my bones with wet sand. By the time I got home from school, I could barely climb the porch steps. I stopped painting in the evenings. I stopped calling Marcy back. I stopped going to brunch after church because I was too embarrassed to sit there pale and shaking while everyone else talked about vacations, bathroom remodels, children, normal life. Ethan said I was overwhelmed. You carry stress in your body, he told me one night while I sat on the bathroom floor with my arms wrapped around my stomach. I don't think this is stress, I whispered. He leaned against the doorframe in his pharmacy polo, looking down at me. Lena, you teach children who eat glue and cry over broken crayons. Of course you're tired. I tried to laugh because he smiled like it was a joke. But it did not feel like a joke. It felt like a door closing. Carol noticed my exhaustion too. She did not worry. She used it. At the pharmacy's 40th anniversary party, I spent 6 hours hanging green and white banners, arranging cupcakes, and folding tiny t-shirts with the Caldwell logo for the fundraiser table. The next morning, Carol posted 27 photos on Facebook. Ethan shaking hands with the mayor, Carol cutting the cake, the pharmacy staff smiling near the register, even Mrs. Donnelly, one of Ethan's oldest customers, holding a plate of cookies. I was in none of them, not one. When I asked Ethan about it, he kissed my forehead and said, "Baby, you look tired in most of the pictures. I was protecting you." Protecting me. That was what he called erasing me. At Sunday dinners, Carol got bolder. She started bringing up legacy every chance she got. Caldwell Family Pharmacy was a legacy. Ethan's father's name was a legacy. The Caldwell bloodline was a legacy. My grandmother's house apparently was not a legacy. It was that little blue place. Once Carol tapped her fork against her plate and said, "Your father built that pharmacy for a Caldwell grandson one day." The table went quiet. Ethan looked down. I felt heat crawl up my neck. "We're still trying," I said softly. Carol looked at me the way people look at wilted flowers. "Yes," she said, "we know." That night I cried in the laundry room with the dryer running so Ethan would not hear. But he did hear. He opened the door and sighed. "Mom didn't mean it like that." "She did. You're too sensitive." "I'm hurt, Ethan." "No," he said, voice smooth and flat. "You're choosing to be hurt." That was his gift. He could turn any wound into something I had done to myself. By the 5th year of our marriage, I had become a ghost in my own home. Ethan slept easily beside me while I lay awake, sweating through the sheets. He ate breakfast while I pushed toast around my plate. He made plans without asking me because, as he put it, "You'll probably be too tired anyway." Carol began coming over without calling. She would open cabinets, rearrange my pantry, click her tongue at the dust on Grandma Ruth's old windowsills. "This house needs discipline," she said one afternoon. "Your grandmother let things get sentimental. Sentiment doesn't build a legacy." There was that word again. Legacy. I wish I could tell you I defended myself. I didn't. I was too tired, too confused, too trained to keep peace in rooms where nobody cared whether peace was killing me. The first time I secretly made a doctor's appointment, I almost canceled it 3 times. Not because I didn't want help, because I was afraid Ethan would find out. That is when you know something is wrong, although I did not yet have the courage to say it. A married woman should not feel like she is committing a crime by seeing a doctor alone. I chose a clinic across town nowhere near Caldwell Family Pharmacy. Riverside Women's Health was in a plain beige building between a dentist and a tax office. Nothing dramatic, nothing impressive, just a waiting room with chipped blue chairs and a receptionist wearing pink reading glasses. When the intake form asked for an emergency contact, I wrote Marcy's name. My hand shook when I did it. I could not remember the last time Ethan had not been the answer to every question about my life. When the nurse asked what medications I took, I pulled the amber bottle from my purse. My husband packs them, I said. They're mostly vitamins. She typed that into the computer. Then Dr. Priya Shah came in. She was in her early 40s with kind eyes and a voice that made you want to tell the truth. Not the big dramatic truth, the small embarrassing truth, the kind you usually swallow. I told her about the cramps, the exhaustion, the nausea, the headaches, the years of trying to get pregnant. The way my husband said it was stress. The way his mother looked at me like I had failed a test every other woman had passed. When I finished, I apologized. I know it sounds like a lot, I said. Dr. Shah looked up from her notes. Lena Payne is not an inconvenience, it is information. I almost cried just hearing that. She ordered blood work. Then she asked to see the supplements. She turned the amber bottle in her hand, reading the label Ethan had printed at the pharmacy. Brooks Caldwell Lena Fertility Support Compound, take one at bedtime. Dr. Shah's eyebrows moved slightly. Did another provider prescribe this? My husband said it didn't need a prescription. He said it was a custom supplement. Did he give you an ingredient list? I shook my head. He said I wouldn't understand most of it anyway. Her face changed then. Not dramatically. Just enough. Would you be comfortable leaving a sample with us? Of the vitamins? Yes. Why? I want to confirm what is in them. That was the first crack. The blood work came back 2 days later. Dr. Shah called me at school during lunch. I was sitting alone in my classroom eating crackers because real food made me sick. Lena, she said, can you come in today? My hand tightened around the phone. Is it bad? I don't want to discuss it while you're alone at work. Can you come in after school? That afternoon, I drove to Riverside with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Dr. Shah had a folder on her desk. Beside it sat my amber bottle in a clear plastic bag. She asked me to sit. Then she said the sentence that split my life in two. Lena, these are not fertility vitamins. I stared at her. What? The lab found prescription-level hormonal compounds in these capsules. I'm going to keep this simple. Whatever you have been taking appears to have been interfering with your natural cycle, not supporting it. I heard the words. I understood each one separately. But together they made no sense. No, I said. That can't be right. I had the sample tested twice. Ethan wouldn't. My voice disappeared. Dr. Shah folded her hands. I don't know what Ethan knew or intended. What I do know is that these capsules likely contributed to your symptoms. They may also explain why you have not been able to conceive. The room tilted. For 5 years I had blamed my body. For 5 years I had let Carol look at me like an empty field that refused to grow anything. For 5 years Ethan had watched me swallow those little white capsules every night. Sometimes he even brought me water. Do not take another one, Dr. Shah said. Not tonight, not ever. Am I dying? I whispered. No, she said gently. But your body has been under stress for a long time. We need to do more tests. And Lena, she hesitated. That scared me more than anything else. Is there somewhere safe you can stay tonight? Safe. That word did not belong in a conversation about marriage. I laughed once too sharply. My husband isn't violent. Dr. Shah did not smile. Control does not always start with violence. I drove home in a fog. The house on Sycamore Lane looked the same as always. Blue siding, white shutters, hydrangeas blooming heavy along the fence, Grandma Ruth's porch swing moving slightly in the wind. For a moment, I wanted to run inside, crawl into bed, and pretend Dr. Shah had never called. Then I saw Ethan's truck in the driveway. He was home early. That never happened. I sat in my car for almost 3 minutes before going inside. Ethan was in the kitchen, standing at the counter with my weekly vitamin packets lined up in front of him. Morning, lunch, bedtime. His back was to me. Where were you? He asked. I stopped just inside the doorway. At work. After work. I swallowed. Running errands. He turned. He was still handsome. That bothered me. Some childish part of me expected betrayal to change a person's face, make it ugly enough to match what they had done. But Ethan looked like Ethan. Clean-shaven, calm, pharmacy logo on his shirt, wedding ring bright under the kitchen light. What errands? I set my purse down slowly. I saw a doctor. The silence was immediate. His eyes flicked to my purse. What doctor? A woman across town. Why? Because I'm sick. You're stressed. No, I said, and my voice surprised me because it did not shake. I'm sick. His jaw tightened. What did she tell you? Not are you okay? Not what happened. Not I'm glad you finally got help. What did she tell you? That was when something in me went cold. She tested the capsules. His expression did not change, but his hand moved. Only slightly. It rested over the paper packets on the counter, like he could hide them with his palm. Lena, he said softly, you don't understand how compounding works. Then explain it. You're emotional right now. Explain it. You went behind my back to a doctor who doesn't know your history, gave her something she doesn't understand, and now you're letting her scare you. She said they were suppressing my cycle. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he laughed. Not loudly. Just enough to make me feel foolish. Do you hear yourself? Yes. Do you? Because you're accusing your husband of what poisoning you. I didn't use that word. But you thought it. I stared at him. He stepped closer. You don't want the truth, Lena. You want someone to blame because your body failed you. There it was. Not a slip. A blade. My body failed me. The phrase landed exactly where he wanted it to. For years, that sentence would have folded me in half. But this time I had heard another voice first. Pain is information. I picked up my purse. Where are you going? He asked. To Marcy's. His face hardened. Absolutely not. That was the first time he said it that way. Not like a husband, like an owner. I looked at his hand on the counter covering the packets he had made for me. Then I looked at the house around us. My grandmother's cabinets. My grandmother's yellow mixing bowl on the shelf. The kitchen window where I used to watch her cut hydrangeas in the morning. This was my home before Ethan ever stepped inside it. And still I was the one afraid to leave. I'm going to Marcy's, I said. If you walk out that door, he said, don't expect me to clean up the mess when you come crawling back. I waited for that sentence to break me. It didn't. I walked out. Marcy opened her apartment door wearing pajama pants and a Cleveland brown sweatshirt, even though it was only 7:30. The second she saw my face, she pulled me inside. Tell me who I'm fighting, she said. That was Marcy. No preamble, no judgment, just loyalty. I told her everything. The doctor, the blood work, the capsules, Ethan in the kitchen. By the time I finished, Marcy was sitting very still on the couch, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea she had forgotten to drink. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. I looked at her. What? You disappeared, Lena. Not all at once, little by little. Every time I asked you to lunch, Ethan said you were resting. Every time I texted you, answered 2 days later like you were scared to say too much. I thought maybe you didn't need me anymore. Tears filled my eyes. I needed you. Then why didn't you call? I opened my mouth. No answer came out. Because Ethan said you were dramatic. Because Carol said you filled my head with feminist nonsense. Because I was embarrassed. Because I did not know how to explain that my marriage felt like drowning in a room everyone else insisted was dry. Marcy reached over and took my hand. You're staying here. I don't want to drag you into this. Too late. That night, Ethan called 23 times. He texted, come home. We need to talk like adults. You're embarrassing yourself. Your doctor is wrong. Marcy has always hated me. Do not make me involve my mother. Lena, answer me. The last text came at 1:12 a.m. You are my wife. Act like it. I stared at those words until they blurred. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, Marcy drove me back to Riverside for more tests. Dr. Shaw confirmed what she already suspected. My body had been pushed into a state it never should have been in. She could not promise what would heal or how quickly. She could not promise I would ever have the family I had cried for. But she said something I held on to. Your body has been trying to protect you, Lena. It was not betraying you. Someone else was. Someone else. My husband. The man who packed my vitamins with his own hands. Dr. Shaw recommended that I document everything. Keep the bottle and consider reporting what had happened. She gave me the number of a patient advocate and a counselor who worked with women leaving controlling relationships. I nodded through it. But inside, I was thinking about something else. Carol's face. The way she watched me at dinners. The way she stopped asking when I would get pregnant and started saying, maybe God closes some doors for a reason. Had she known? I got my answer 3 days later. It came from Facebook. Marcy was the one who found it. She had been sitting at her kitchen table scrolling with the grim determination of a woman investigating a crime with coffee and rage. Then she froze. Lena, she said, come here. On her screen was a photo posted by Carol Caldwell. It showed Ethan standing in Carol's backyard beside a picnic table covered in red checkered cloth. His arm was around a young woman I did not recognize. She had honey blonde hair, a soft pink dress, and one hand resting on a round, pregnant belly. Beside them stood 2 little boys, maybe 3 and 5, both wearing tiny Caldwell Family Pharmacy t-shirts. Carol's caption read, some blessings arrive after years of prayer. So grateful our family legacy will continue. My ears started ringing. Marcy whispered, oh my God. I took the phone from her hand. The woman was tagged. Kelsey Morgan. I clicked. Her profile was mostly private, but not completely. There were pictures. Kelsey and Ethan at a pumpkin patch. Kelsey and Ethan at the Columbus Zoo. Ethan holding one of the little boys on his shoulders at a 4th of July parade. Ethan standing beside Kelsey at a church picnic with one hand resting on the small of her back. My husband who told me he was working late. My husband who told me I was too tired to attend pharmacy events. My husband who said the dream of children was hurting him too. In every photo, he looked happy. Not relieved. Not trapped. Happy. Then I saw one that made my heart stop. Kelsey's wrist rested on Ethan's chest. Around it was a thin gold bracelet with a tiny blue enamel flower. My grandmother's bracelet. The one I thought I had lost 2 years ago. Grandma Ruth had worn it every Sunday of my childhood. She used to let me trace the little flower during church when I got restless. After she died, I kept it in a small dish on my dresser. Then one morning it was gone. Ethan told me I probably misplaced it. You're always putting things in strange places, he said. But there it was, on another woman's wrist. Something inside me did not shatter. It sharpened. I did not scream. I did not throw Marcy's phone. I did not collapse. I saved every picture. Then I sat on Marcy's bathroom floor with the phone in my hand, staring at a photo of Ethan holding that little boy. I did not cry because he cheated. Not only because of that, I cried because the child was wearing a tiny pharmacy shirt I had folded myself the year before for a fundraiser. I had helped dress the family that replaced me. That was the moment I understood. I had not just been betrayed, I had been useful. Useful until I was inconvenient. Useful until Ethan could build the life he wanted using my house, my money, my silence, my body, and even my grandmother's memory. Then I called Carol. She answered on the 3rd ring. Lena, she said, not surprised. You knew. Silence. Then a sigh. Not guilt. Annoyance. About what, dear? About Kelsey. Another silence. Then Carol said this conversation would be better in person. No, it'll be fine right now. You're upset. Yes. You should calm down before you say something you regret. I laughed once. It sounded nothing like me. Carol. I'm looking at a picture of my husband, his pregnant girlfriend, and 2 little boys wearing Caldwell shirts. She is wearing my grandmother's bracelet. I think we're past calm. Her voice cooled. Kelsey has been very good for Ethan. There it was. No denial. No shock. No shame. Just that sharp little sentence placed carefully between my ribs. She gave him peace, Carol continued. She gave him sons. I gripped the edge of Marcy's sink. And I gave him what? Carol exhaled. A great deal of difficulty. For years I had tried to win this woman's approval. I brought pies to her dinners. I remembered her birthday. I helped clean her gutters when Ethan said he was too busy. I sat beside her in church after her sister died. I listened to her stories about Ethan's father, even the ones she repeated. And all that time she had been making room for my replacement. Did you know about the capsules, I asked? Her pause answered before her words did. I know Ethan tried everything to help you. No. Did you know he was giving me something that kept me from getting pregnant? Carol's voice dropped. Be careful, Lena. Why, afraid I'll embarrass the family. You have already done that. I almost smiled. Because the old Lena would have apologized. The old Lena would have begged. The old Lena would have said, I'm sorry, I just don't understand. But I was not old Lena anymore. Not fully. Not after Dr. Shaw. Not after the bottle. Not after Kelsey's wrist. I'm coming to Sunday dinner, I said. Carol went quiet. You are not invited. I know. Then I hung up. Marcy stared at me from the doorway. Tell me we're not doing something stupid. We're doing something necessary. Sunday dinner at Carol Caldwell's house had been the center of Ethan's family for as long as I had known him. Every Sunday at 5, pot roast. Green beans cooked too long. Mashed potatoes with too much butter. Sweet tea in a glass pitcher. Carol lived in a ranch house 10 minutes from the pharmacy, the kind with plastic flowers in the front beds and framed Bible verses in every hallway. The driveway was full when Marcy pulled up. Ethan's truck, Carol's Buick, his sister Dana's minivan, and a white SUV I recognized from Kelsey's Facebook photos. My stomach turned. Marcy parked across the street. You want me to come in? Number. Lena, I need to do this myself. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she handed me her keys. Press panic if you need me. I walked up Carol's front steps with my hands cold and steady. Before I could knock, the door opened. Ethan stood there. For a second, we just looked at each other. He had not shaved. There were shadows under his eyes. But he still wore that controlled expression, the one that told the world he had everything handled. You shouldn't be here, he said. I know. This is a family dinner. I looked past him. Carol stood in the dining room doorway. Dana sat at the table with her husband pretending to rearrange napkins. Kelsey stood near the kitchen, one hand on her belly. The two little boys sat on the living room rug building a tower from wooden blocks. They had Ethan's eyes, both of them. I stepped inside. Ethan lowered his voice. Lena, do not do this. Do what? Humiliate yourself. That almost made me laugh. I walked past him into the dining room. Everyone stared. No one said my name. Not Dana, who had once asked me to babysit her daughter during a stomach flu. Not Carol, who had eaten Thanksgiving at my table. Not Kelsey, who wore my grandmother's bracelet like it belonged to her. I looked at the table. 7 place settings. None for me. That hurt more than I expected. Not because I wanted pot roast. Because there is a particular kind of cruelty in being erased before you even leave. Then I saw the chair. My old chair. I knew it because of the tiny scratch on the back from the night I helped Carol carry in Christmas dishes. Kelsey was sitting there. Beside her plate was my grandmother's blue serving bowl, the one Carol used to call Too Country when it sat in my kitchen. Now it was good enough for the woman replacing me. Carol smoothed the front of her blouse. Lena, this is not appropriate. Neither was giving my seat to your son's pregnant girlfriend while I was still his wife. Kelsey flinched. Ethan stepped toward me. Enough. I turned to him. How old are they? His face hardened. Don't. How old are your sons, Ethan? The older boy looked up from his blocks. Carol snapped, children go to the den. Nobody moved. Kelsey whispered, Noah is 5, Caleb is 3. 5. 3. My marriage was almost 6 years old. I felt the room tilt, but I stayed standing. Did he tell you about me? I asked her. Kelsey's eyes filled with tears. He said you were separated. He said you were sick and didn't want a family. He said you only stayed married for insurance and the house. The house. There it was again. The blue Cape Cod on Sycamore Lane. Grandma Ruth's hydrangeas. My inheritance. My safe place. Turned into a line in Ethan's story. I looked at Carol. And you helped him. Carol lifted her chin. I helped my son survive a barren marriage. Dana gasped softly. Kelsey put a hand over her mouth. Ethan closed his eyes for half a second, irritated that his mother had said the quiet part out loud. Barren. The word should have cut me. Instead, it landed at my feet like something dead. I wasn't barren, I said. I was being drugged. The room went silent. Ethan's face changed. Just for a moment. Fear. Then he recovered. That is a disgusting accusation. It's a lab result. You're confused. I'm done being confused. He stepped close enough that I could smell his aftershave. The same one he wore on our wedding day. Lena, he said softly, dangerously, you were never erased. You were never important enough to be written in. The room froze. Even Carol looked at him. For 1 second, the mask slipped too far, and everyone saw what lived underneath. I looked at the boys, Noah and Caleb, innocent, watching adults teach them what family meant. Then I looked back at Ethan. It makes sense now, I said. You didn't want a wife. You wanted a useful silence. Kelsey started crying. Carol told her to sit down. Dana's husband stood and said, maybe we should all take a breath. Nobody listened. I reached into my purse and pulled out the printed photo. Kelsey's wrist. My bracelet. I set it on the table. That belonged to my grandmother. Kelsey stared at the picture, then at her wrist. What? She wore it every Sunday for 20 years. It disappeared from my dresser 2 years ago. Kelsey turned to Ethan. You said it was your grandmother's. Ethan's mouth tightened. It was just a bracelet. And somehow that sentence hurt almost as much as the pills. Just a bracelet. Just my childhood. Just the woman who raised me. Just one of the last things I had left. Kelsey unclasped it with shaking fingers and set it on the table. I didn't know she whispered. I believed her. Partly. That surprised me. I did not like her. I was not ready to forgive her. But in that moment, I saw something familiar in her face. A woman realizing the man she loved had written her into a story where another woman had to disappear. Carol grabbed the bracelet. This family is not going to be torn apart over cheap jewelry. I reached out and took it from her hand. My voice was quiet. That's the difference between you and me, Carol. You see price, I see love. For the first time since I had known her, Carol had no answer. Ethan did. You want money? He snapped. Is that what this is? You want the house, the pharmacy. Fine, we'll handle it privately. But you will not destroy my reputation because you're angry you couldn't give me children. There it was. The real Ethan. Not the smiling pharmacist. Not the worried husband. Not the community man with the toy train at Christmas. This was the man underneath. Sharp. Cold. Careless once he thought the room belonged to him. I put the bracelet in my purse. I'm not here for money. Then what do you want? I looked at each person in that room. Carol stiff with fury. Donna pale and silent. Kelsey crying with one hand on her belly. The boys still watching from the rug. And Ethan, my husband, waiting for me to break so he could call me unstable. I wanted to see if anyone in this family would tell me the truth. No one spoke. I nodded. That's what I thought. Then I looked at Kelsey. You were lied to, I said. But the day you knew another woman was being kept in the dark and stayed quiet, you stopped being innocent. Her face crumpled. I didn't know what was in the packets, she whispered. But I knew there were packets. I knew there was something he didn't want you asking about. I told myself it wasn't my business because I wanted the life he promised me. That was the most honest thing anyone in that room had said all night. I nodded once. Then I hope you teach your sons better than the Caldwells taught theirs. I walked out. My legs nearly gave out on the porch. Marcy was already out of the car halfway across the street. She caught me before I hit the steps. I've got you, she said. For the first time in years, someone did. The next week was not dramatic in the way movies make betrayal dramatic. There were no thunderstorms, no screaming in the rain, no instant justice. There was mostly paperwork, nausea, missed work, and moments where I stood in Marcy's bathroom brushing my teeth and suddenly remembered a new lie. Memory is cruel that way. Once you know the truth, it goes back through your life and turns on lights in rooms you had kept dark. I remembered Ethan replacing my prenatal vitamins after saying the old brand was cheap garbage. I remembered him insisting I use his pharmacy even when my insurance would have made another place cheaper. I remembered Carol once asking him, is she still taking what you gave her, and Ethan answering every night. I remembered feeling grateful. That was the part that made me sick. Not just that he hurt me, that I thanked him for it. Dr. Shaw connected me with a counselor named Denise who specialized in coercive relationships. I hated the word coercive at first. It sounded too official, too dramatic, like something that happened to other women in documentaries, not to elementary art teachers who made paper snowflakes and forgot to water their basil plant. Denise did not push me. She let me sit in her office with a cup of tea going cold in my hands. Then she asked, when did you first learn that keeping the peace mattered more than telling the truth? I thought about my mother, the unpaid bills, the boyfriends, the way Grandma Ruth used to say, baby, you don't have to make yourself small to be loved. I had forgotten that. Or maybe Ethan had trained me to. 2 weeks after Sunday dinner, I went back to the house on Sycamore Lane. This time I did not go alone. Marcy came with me. So did her brother Luis, who was a locksmith and had the calm personality of a man who had seen every possible version of people breaking up badly. Ethan was not there. Most of his clothes were gone. So was the newer laptop from his office, his father's watch, and the framed photo of Caldwell Family Pharmacy's grand reopening. But he had left plenty behind. The house looked wrong, not messy, hollow, like someone had taken the warmth and left the furniture. I walked into our bedroom and opened my jewelry dish. Empty except for a pair of earrings from Target and a button. I checked the closet shelf where I kept Grandma Ruth's recipe box. Gone. My chest tightened. I checked the linen closet, the cedar chest, the dining room hutch. Nothing. He took her recipes, I whispered. Marcy's face darkened. That man is lucky I don't believe in prison orange. I sat on the edge of the bed, gripping my knees. The bracelet had been bad enough. But the recipe box, that was Grandma Ruth's handwriting. Her sweet potato pie, her chicken and dumplings, her notes in the margins. Add more pepper if Lena is sad. Extra cinnamon for Christmas. Ethan did not even cook. He had taken it because he knew it would hurt me. Luis changed the locks while Marcy helped me search the rest of the house. In Ethan's office, I found a cardboard box shoved behind old pharmacy catalogs. Inside were things that did not belong together. A stack of unopened mail addressed to me. Several birthday cards from Marcy I had never seen. A small envelope from Riverside Women's Health returned because I had apparently moved. And an old tablet I thought Ethan had donated years ago. It was the one we had once used at the pharmacy front counter to process online orders during the remodel. The screen was cracked. The battery was almost dead, but it still charged. And because Ethan used the same passcode for everything related to the pharmacy, I guessed it on the second try. 1984. The year his father opened Caldwell Family Pharmacy. It opened to his messages. I know stories love a smoking gun. A single document. A secret recording. A confession written in red ink. Real life is usually uglier and smaller. It is fragments. Text messages. Calendar notes. Receipts. Tiny ordinary things that prove someone lied while standing close enough to kiss you. The tablet had messages synced from Ethan's phone going back almost 3 years. Most were boring. Pharmacy orders, staff schedules, football comments with his brother-in-law. Then I searched my name. Lena. Hundreds of messages appeared. The first thread was with Carol. Carol. Is she still taking the packets, Ethan? Yes. Stop asking. Carol. I'm asking because Kelsey is starting to show. You need a plan. Ethan. I have one. Carol. Your father built that pharmacy for a Caldwell grandson, not for Ruth Brooks's charity case. Ethan. Don't call her that in writing. Carol. Then fix it. My hands went numb. Marcy read over my shoulder. Lena. I kept scrolling. Another message 6 months later. Carol. She looked awful at dinner. Ethan good. Tired women don't ask questions. Carol. That sounds cruel. Ethan. It's practical. Carol. Just make sure she signs the refinance papers. Ethan. She will. She never reads anything. Refinance papers. I remembered those. Ethan had brought them home on a Wednesday night with takeout Thai food. Just paperwork for the pharmacy remodel, he said. Your name is on the house, so the bank needs your signature. I signed while eating pad thai from a carton. I did not read. Because my husband said, trust me. The old shame rose up fast. Then something Denise had told me came back. Trusting someone is not stupidity. Exploiting trust is cruelty. I sat down again. I kept reading. The second thread was with Kelsey. Kelsey. Did you tell her yet? Ethan. Not the time. Kelsey. I'm tired of being hidden. Noah asked why Daddy doesn't sleep here. Ethan soon. Kelsey. You said that last year. Ethan. After the transfer is done, everything changes. Kelsey. You promise, Ethan, I promise. You and the boys are my real family. My real family. I stared at those words for a long time. Not because I wanted to be his real family anymore, because I had spent years trying to earn a place he had already given away. Further down there was another message. Kelsey. What about Lena, Ethan? She'll be fine. She has her little school job. Kelsey. That sounds cold. Ethan. Don't start. She got more from me than she ever would have had alone. Kelsey. Does she know about the packets, Ethan? She knows what I tell her. That was the line that did it. She knows what I tell her. I took screenshots until my fingers hurt. Then I emailed everything to myself, Dr. Shaw Denise, and the patient advocate. Not because I wanted a courtroom scene, not because I wanted revenge in the childish sense, because for the first time in years I wanted a record that did not belong to Ethan. I wanted my own life written in my own name. The pharmacy turned before Ethan did. Small towns forgive many things: affairs, divorce, even messy family secrets if everyone smiles hard enough at church. But people do not like wondering whether the friendly pharmacist who packed their mother's medication can be trusted. At first, nobody knew details. They only knew Caldwell Family Pharmacy closed for 2 days for inventory. Then one technician quit. Then another. Then a handwritten sign appeared on the door: temporarily closed due to staffing. By Friday, everyone was talking. At school, people tried not to stare. Some failed. The principal, Mrs. Halpern, called me into her office and said I could take as much time as I needed. I told her I wanted to keep teaching. She looked surprised. I understood why. People expect betrayed women to disappear, to hide until they are pretty again, manageable again, less uncomfortable to look at. But my students still needed to learn how to mix blue and yellow into green. And I needed to remember I could still create something beautiful with my hands. One afternoon, a little girl named Sophie came up to my desk, holding a painting of a house. It had purple flowers and a yellow sun. "This is for you," she said. "Because you looked sad yesterday." I thanked her. Then I cried in the supply closet for 6 minutes. Healing is not graceful. It is crying between construction paper and glue sticks, then wiping your face and teaching 22 children how to clean brushes. Ethan finally came to the house 9 days after I changed the locks. He rang the doorbell at 8:03 p.m. I watched him on the camera from the living room. He looked tired. Good. He held Grandma Ruth's recipe box under one arm. For a moment, rage moved through me so strongly I had to sit down. Then I opened the door but left the chain on. His eyes dropped to it. "Really?" he said. "Yes." He lifted the recipe box. "I brought this back. You stole it. I took it by mistake. You don't cook." His jaw moved. "Can we not do this through a door? Number." He looked past me into the house. "My house too, Lena." I almost smiled. "There it is." "What?" "The reason you came." He shifted the box in his arms. "I came because this has gotten out of control." "No, it was out of control when you fed me pills and called it love." His face darkened. "Keep your voice down." "Why afraid the neighbors might hear?" "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know what was in the capsules." "You know what one doctor told you." "I know what your messages said." That landed. His eyes sharpened. "What messages?" "The ones on the old tablet." For the first time, Ethan Caldwell had no immediate answer. It was almost satisfying. Almost. Then he leaned closer to the crack in the door. "You need to be very careful with things you don't understand." "I understand enough." "No," he said softly. "You don't. You think you're strong right now because Marcy and some doctor filled your head. But eventually, everyone goes home to their own life. Marcy will get tired. Your doctor will move on. Your little school will replace you if you become too much trouble. And then it'll just be you in this old house with no husband, no children, no money, and no idea how the world works. A year earlier, that would have destroyed me. That was the cruel genius of Ethan. He did not invent my fears. He studied them. Then he repeated them back in his own voice. I looked at him through the narrow opening. "You forgot one thing." He frowned. "This old house was mine before you." His nostrils flared. "And I was mine before you too." He stared at me. Then he laughed under his breath. "You always did like sounding brave." "No," I said. "I liked being loved." I confused the two. His expression flickered. I reached through the chain gap and took the recipe box from his hands. His fingers tightened for 1 second, resisting. Then he let go. I closed the door. He stood on the porch for another full minute. Then he said through the wood, "You'll regret this." I held Grandma Ruth's recipe box to my chest. "No," I whispered. "I already regret staying." The public breaking point came 2 weeks later at the Westerville Harvest Fair. Every October, the town closed Maple Street for food trucks, hay bales, craft booths, and a stage where children performed songs nobody could hear over the generator from the kettle corn stand. Caldwell Family Pharmacy had sponsored the fair for years. Ethan always gave a little speech. He thanked the town. He talked about health, family, tradition. That year, I was not planning to go. I had enough of whispers. Enough of people pretending not to know. Enough of women in grocery aisles touching my arm and saying, Marriage is complicated, as if complicated meant secretly giving your wife capsules while building another family. Then Marcy sent me a screenshot. Carol had posted an announcement. So proud to see my son Ethan continue the Caldwell legacy at this year's Harvest Fair. Family is not about the past. It is about the future. Under it was a photo of Ethan Kelsey, her 2 boys, and Carol standing in front of the pharmacy. Kelsey's belly was bigger now. The boys wore matching shirts. The caption did not mention me. Of course it did not. But it did mention something else. The pharmacy window had a new sign. Coming soon. Caldwell & Sons Wellness Market. Not Caldwell Family Pharmacy. Caldwell & Sons. I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I went upstairs and opened my closet. I did not choose a revenge dress. I chose a navy sweater jeans and Grandma Ruth's bracelet. I wanted to look like myself. That felt more dangerous. Maple Street was crowded when I arrived. Kids with painted faces ran between hay bales. A man from church sold barbecue sauce under a tent. The high school jazz band played something cheerful and slightly off-key. People saw me. Conversations dipped then resumed badly. I kept walking. The pharmacy stood in the middle of the block green awning bright in the afternoon sun. A small stage had been set up outside. Ethan stood near the microphone with Carol on one side and Kelsey on the other. He saw me just before the speech began. His face tightened. Carol followed his gaze. For once she looked unsure. Good. The mayor introduced Ethan like nothing was wrong. Now a man whose family has served this town for nearly 40 years. Applause. Less than usual, I noticed. But still applause. Ethan stepped to the microphone. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, wedding ring gone. That detail hit me strangely. Not with grief. With disgust. He smiled at the crowd. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Westerville. My father believed a pharmacy wasn't just a business. It was a promise to care for your neighbors like family. Family. The word moved through the crowd. I stood near the back next to a booth selling pumpkin candles. Marcy stood beside me. Louise stood behind us, arms crossed. Ethan continued. This has been a challenging season personally, but I believe challenges reveal what matters most. And what matters most is legacy. The next generation. Building something our children can be proud of. He reached for Kelsey's hand. She looked pale. I wondered if she wanted to be up there. I wondered if that mattered anymore. Ethan smiled wider. That is why I'm proud to announce that Caldwell Family Pharmacy will soon become Caldwell & Sons Wellness Market, a new chapter for my family and for this community. Carol began clapping first. A few others followed. Then I heard my own voice. Number. It was not loud, but somehow it carried. Heads turned. Ethan froze. Marcy whispered, "Oh, we're doing this." I walked toward the stage. Ethan's smile stayed fixed, but his eyes warned me. Lena, he said into the microphone with a little laugh, "This isn't the time." I stepped close enough that I did not need to shout. That's what you always said when the truth was inconvenient. The crowd went silent. The mayor looked like he wanted to vanish into the hay bales. Ethan lowered the microphone. "Don't embarrass yourself." I smiled. That sentence had worked for years. It did not work anymore. I turned to the crowd. I am not here to make a scene. I am here because my grandmother's house helped keep that pharmacy alive. My paychecks helped cover its bills. My weekends helped decorate its windows. My body paid for Ethan Caldwell's lies. And my name has been erased from this story long enough. A murmur moved through the street. Ethan stepped down from the stage. "Stop." I looked at him. Number. Just one word. Small. Clean. Mine. Carol pushed forward. "This is a private family matter." I turned to her. "You made it public when you posted my replacement family on Facebook." Kelsey flinched. The crowd shifted. Everyone knew now. Or at least everyone understood enough. Ethan reached for my arm. Luis moved before I could. "Don't touch her," he said. Ethan pulled back furious. I reached into my purse and took out 3 things. Not a stack of files, not a legal binder. Just 3 ordinary objects. The amber bottle. The screenshot of Ethan's message. She knows what I tell her. And Grandma Ruth's bracelet. I held up the bottle first. For years, my husband had told me these were fertility supplements. My voice shook then. I let it. They were not. A woman in the crowd gasped. I held up the screenshot. When I got sick, he told people I was unstable. When I couldn't get pregnant, his mother called me barren. But he knew. They knew. Carol's face went white with rage. That is taken out of context. I looked at her. What context makes it better? No answer. Then I held up the bracelet. This belonged to Ruth Brooks. She raised me in the little blue house on Sycamore Lane. She taught me that family is not a name on a sign. Family is who shows up when nobody is clapping. I looked at Kelsey. This woman was lied to, too. But she also knew enough to stay quiet. Her children did not ask for any of this, and I will not punish them for Ethan's choices. Then I looked at Ethan. But I will not let you build a legacy on my silence. His face had changed completely. The mask was gone. You're sick, he snapped. This is why I didn't tell you things. You twist everything. You take private pain and turn it into theater. I stepped closer. No, Ethan. You turned my pain into privacy because privacy protected you. Someone in the crowd said, "Let her talk." It was Mrs. Donnelly, one of Ethan's oldest customers. She had bought her blood pressure medication from Caldwell's for 20 years. She was the same woman Carol had posted in the pharmacy anniversary photos while cropping me out. Ethan looked stunned. Mrs. Donnelly stepped forward with her cane. My Harold's pills were wrong twice last spring, she said. You told me I was confused. Ethan's face drained. Another voice spoke. A former pharmacy technician named Bree. That happened more than twice. The crowd shifted again. This was no longer just my marriage. That is the thing about men who build reputations on trust. When one wall cracks, people start checking the whole house. The mayor cleared his throat and stepped away from the Caldwell banner. That tiny movement said more than a speech. Ethan looked around, measuring the crowd, calculating. Then he did what he always did. He tried to make himself the victim. My wife is unwell, he said loudly. I have tried to protect her dignity, but clearly she needs help. A year earlier, people might have believed him. Maybe some still did. But I was standing upright, calm, clear, and he was the one sweating under the October sun. I walked to the microphone. This time nobody stopped me. My name is Lena Brooks, I said. I paused. Then I added, not Caldwell, not anymore. My throat tightened, but I kept going. I do need help. I need healing. I need time. I need to learn how to trust my own mind again. But I am not crazy. I am not barren. I am not an inconvenience. And I am not a footnote in the Caldwell family legacy. I looked at Carol. I am Ruth Brooks' granddaughter. Then I looked at Ethan. And that means I know how to survive with dignity. For a moment, the street was completely silent. Then Marcy clapped. Once. Loud. Louise joined. Then Mrs. Donnelly. Then Bree. Then others. Not everyone. This was not a movie. Some people looked away. Some whispered. Some stood frozen, uncomfortable with a woman refusing to bleed quietly. But enough clapped. Enough to make Ethan understand he no longer owned the room. He stepped toward me, face twisted. You think this is over? I looked at him. No, I think it finally started. The weeks after the harvest fair were messy. People love clean endings because real ones are exhausting. The pharmacy did not collapse overnight, but it changed. Customers transferred to prescriptions. Staff refused to return unless Ethan stepped down. Carol stopped posting Bible verses and started posting quotes about betrayal. Nobody commented. That was the first punishment she could not control. The long Sunday dinner table she used to rule sat almost empty by Thanksgiving. Dana stopped bringing her children. Kelsey would not answer her calls. Even the pastor's wife, who used to compliment Carol's sweet tea, crossed the grocery aisle to avoid her. For the first time in her life, Carol Caldwell had to sit inside the silence she had spent years creating for other women. Ethan lost more than money. He lost the one thing he had loved most: being believed. The pharmacy board opened an investigation. Dr. Shaw submitted her report. The patient advocate helped me file mine. I hired a divorce attorney, not because I wanted a legal war, but because I had learned the hard way that kindness without boundaries is just an unlocked door. Kelsey moved out of the rental Ethan had been paying for. She sent me one message. I am sorry about the bracelet. I am sorry about all of it. I believed him. I also ignored things I should not have ignored. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I gave the boys my last name on their school forms today. I read it 3 times. Then I wrote back, protect your children. And teach them that love without honesty is just control wearing perfume. That was all. Carol never apologized. Of course she didn't. She wrote me a letter instead. 3 pages of blame. She said I had destroyed her son. She said I had ruined the pharmacy. She said I had made private pain public. She said Ruth Brooks would be ashamed of me. That was the only line that made me angry enough to respond. I took out one of Grandma Ruth's recipe cards. On the back in her handwriting it said, Lena, when people use love to make you small, leave the room. Love should give you shoulders. I photocopied it, mailed it to Carol. No note. Ethan tried to come back twice. The first time he cried. Not real crying. Performance crying. The kind where he covered his face but checked between his fingers to see if I was moved. I lost everything he said on my porch. No, I told him. You spent years gambling with people's trust. The bill came due. The second time he was angry. You'll never have children, he said. You know that, right? Even if your body recovers, who would build a family with someone this damaged? That one hurt. I won't pretend it didn't. Some words know exactly where to land. But I had learned something by then. Pain is not proof someone is right. It is only proof they found an old bruise. I said a family built on cruelty is not a family. It is a hostage situation. Then I closed the door. Months passed. My body slowly changed again. The headaches softened. The cramps faded. My hands stopped shaking in the mornings. I slept. Not perfectly, but enough to dream. I went back to painting. At first I painted ugly things. Black trees. Empty chairs. A house with no doors. Denise said that was fine. Let it be ugly, she told me. Ugly is honest before it becomes beautiful. In spring, I planted new hydrangeas along Grandma Ruth's fence. Purple ones. The same color she loved. Marcy came over with coffee and complained that gardening was just outdoor chores with better branding. Louise fixed the porch swing. Mrs. Donnelly brought lemon bread and said, Your grandmother would have liked seeing that house bright again. I cried after she left. But this time crying did not feel like breaking. It felt like thawing. By June, I had taken back my name legally. Lena Brooks. No Caldwell attached. At school, my students made a mural called Homes That Hold Us. Each child painted a house. Some had rainbow roofs. Some had dragons. One had a swimming pool on the roof because, as the little boy explained, in my house, gravity is optional. In the corner, I painted a small blue Cape Cod with white shutters and purple hydrangeas. Under it, I wrote, A home is not where people keep you. A home is where you are allowed to become yourself. The pharmacy eventually sold, not to Ethan, not to Carol. A regional chain bought the building, which made some people sad, but I did not feel much. Maybe I should have. But Caldwell Family Pharmacy had stopped being charming to me long before the sign came down. Ethan lost his license for a while, maybe longer. I stopped tracking every detail because at some point watching someone fall can become another kind of chain. I wanted freedom, not obsession wearing the mask of justice. The divorce took time. There were arguments over money. The house, the pharmacy debt, the refinance, all the things Ethan had hidden behind smiles and signatures. I won't bore you with every document. That was not the real story anyway. The real story was this. One morning I woke up in Grandma Ruth's house and realized I had slept through the night. No fear, no Ethan breathing beside me, no paper packet waiting by the sink, no voice telling me I was too emotional to understand my own life. Just sunlight through the curtains, birds in the hydrangeas, my own body tired but mine. I went downstairs and made coffee. Then I opened Grandma Ruth's recipe box and found the card for cinnamon pancakes. At the bottom, she had written, For Lena when she needs reminding that sweetness can come back. So I made pancakes, just for myself. I set one plate at my grandmother's kitchen table, just one. For years, Carol had made me feel ashamed of an empty chair. That morning, I looked at the empty chairs around me and realized they were not proof that I had no family. They were proof that I had stopped feeding people who only came to erase me. The house was quiet, not lonely. Quiet. And after 6 years of being called difficult for wanting the truth, quiet felt like respect. Ethan inherited a pharmacy. I inherited a house, a bracelet, a recipe box, and a woman's voice telling me never to disappear for love. In the end, only one of us understood what legacy meant. Legacy is not a name painted on a sign. It is not a grandson posed for Facebook under a caption about blessings. It is not a mother protecting her son from consequences. It is not a husband demanding silence and calling it loyalty. Legacy is how people feel after they have been loved by you. My grandmother left me a house, but more than that, she left me a standard. Love does not erase you. Family does not require your silence. Respect is not something you beg for at someone else's table. And dignity is not loud. Sometimes dignity is walking out of Sunday dinner with your grandmother's bracelet in your purse. Sometimes it is changing the locks. Sometimes it is standing in front of a whole town and saying your own name. Sometimes it is making pancakes in a quiet kitchen and realizing nobody gets to call that loneliness. That is peace. If you have ever been made to feel crazy for telling the truth, I hope you hear me. You are not too sensitive. You are not difficult. You are not broken because someone benefited from keeping you confused. Ask questions. Read what you sign. Trust love, but do not surrender your voice to it. And if someone tells you that keeping the family together means letting yourself disappear, remember this. A family that needs your silence to survive is not a family. It is a performance, and you were not born to be someone else's prop. So tell me in the comments, if you were in my place, would you have exposed Ethan at the harvest fair? Or would you have handled it quietly? And have you ever had to choose your dignity over the family everyone else wanted you to protect?